Welcome back to Sims Complete. I'm Matt Sims. He's Phil Sims. And before we get into all of our stuff real quick, just want to say BetOnline continues the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting in 2025. Whatever your season is for first-time bettor, BetOnline has the ultimate game day companion for you with the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA, college basketball, NHL, UFC. BetOnline is the number one sports betting source for the new year. From touchdowns to 3 points to hat tricks, BetOnline has you covered on every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here. Big Phil, how you doing, player?
I be doing. That's it. I'm doing. I'm excited about this weekend. Man, listen, tomorrow night, college playoffs, Friday college playoffs, all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and then Monday night football. Shoot.
Yeah.
Boy, you know what that is? There's a lot of sitting on the couch with the computer in front of me, watching the TV. And what's the last thing?
Food?
You got it. Got to eat while we're watching. Got to keep the energy level up. So maybe that's the reason why I'm so overweight right now, but that's another story.
Well, do you enjoy the Matthew McConaughey the commercial, where he's like, football's designed to make you eat. Jerry, what are you eating? Rice. Jerry's eating rice. Huh.
Yeah. What else is there? There's I can't remember all the things he says. Pretty good though.
Yeah, he is pretty good in it. But yeah, that's you. He's an example of you essentially. So there is some truth to that.
Football says, yeah.
And what's your number one go-to
it says
snack or meal when you're watching football?
Okay, it says enjoyment, eat, enjoy the game. Don't bet on them because if you bet on them, you're just going to lose money. So if I bet on football games the way I pick them on radio shows and all that, man, I'd have to sell my house. I mean, it's just I just can't pick these things.
Well, that's different. You're trying to be a little entertaining more so with some of these picks than you are picking logically.
Sometimes, sometimes, but I do try to pick the right one. My favorite go-to, probably there's a place where we order food from, Paza, here in town in Franklin Lakes, New Jersey. The hamburgers,
Paza.
Yeah, the hamburgers are just awesome.
Yeah.
So usually have one of those every single week. Bring a couple over. My wife doesn't. If Diana doesn't eat her share, then I just eat her share. So there's not like a good, really, truly, really good hamburger as you're watching, football. So
yeah, that's always a good go-to. I enjoy it.
It's just one of my things. So where are we going to start today?
Big Phil, let's start in order for the games that we have this weekend. We got a great slate this weekend of NFL, of course, leading into it with great college football games. I guess we'll discuss those maybe towards the end if we have some time. But starting Saturday, January 11th, we got the number 5 seed LA Chargers traveling to the number 4 seed Houston, Texas. 4:30 CBS, Paramount Plus, all that kind of stuff. Chargers, Texans. Your first initial thoughts on this matchup and what we should expect to see, I guess, for these two teams going into the playoffs?
Well, I think probably for most of these games, I'm going to say the same thing. Listen, it's going to be tough. You're down there, playoff game in Houston. Hopefully they'll sell out, have everybody sit in their seats. I think it's disappointing sometimes. I watch the Houston Texans, and I see too many empty seats for a team that has stars and is rebounded, had a great year last year in the playoffs this year. I don't know why. That just kind of bothers me. And the biggest thing is they're indoors, so you have to fight the elements.
Right.
But, I'm really looking forward to it. Just what happens, when I look at the Houston Texans, I see a fast team that can create big plays kind of on both sides. But as everybody knows, it's been a struggle for C.J. Stroud, protection, receivers, play calls, whatever you want to do. That's a problem. The Chargers, they are just so consistent the way they play the game. And I will say this, Matt, you and I have talked that Greg Roman, the offensive coordinator for the Chargers, has been careful, slowly gets into the game, and then sooner or later they kind of get into a passing attack. And when they do, it seems to me that's when they play their best. Right. And I would say the last 2 or 3 games that they have been a little more creative, some different routes and concepts. I go, wow. Did they get that from Denver? No, I don't know if Denver does it quite this way, but getting guys open down the field. And, of course, that Howitzer guy, the quarterback, he can hit anybody. There's a play early in the game against the Las Vegas Raiders last week. It's the verticals. He looks it off, and he throws about a 35 to 40-yard line drive down the field to hit a receiver. I forgot who it was. It might have been Johnson. I'm not sure. But for a big gain, and it was a play that I have not seen him run this year. So
Right.
So it was too much initial thoughts.
No, it's great. And big part, I think, for the Chargers' success, too, going into the playoffs is having a healthy J.K. Dobbins and just having that balance in the backfield, because we know that is a big part of Greg Roman's identity, of course, Harbaugh's identity with how they want to manage this football team. Quentin Johnston had his best game as a Charger with 13 catches, 186 yards, had a long of 39. That's the play that you're talking about earlier on. And for him to have that level of production along with Ladd McConkey, I think is huge for them. And it really is important, for this team. How do you see big picture? Do you think that CJ and the Houston Texans offense will be able to move the football consistently against this Chargers defense? Or do you see that being a struggle for Houston Texans offense to move the football like that?
I never do this, but I'm just looking at some stats for these teams.
Yeah.
The Chargers are number one in scoring defense in the NFL.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like what they do on offense. They just kind of wear you down, the same thing on the defensive side. So I think between the pass rush, just the fact that I think the Chargers really know who they are all season long, and they're going to take this into the playoffs. I think it could be tough for the Houston Texans. They're going to get pressure on C.J. Stroud. He's been feeling it all year. We'll see what kind of adjustments they make, Matt. Last year, it seemed like you and I, every week, we were bragging about the Houston Texans and the offense and the plays, the play designs and all that.
Right.
I know they've got injuries and all that, but backup wide receivers can still run the same routes. I think that's not as a rule that says you're allowed to, but I haven't seen it this year. So I look at this game and I would be surprised. I expect it to be somewhat close, but I'd be surprised if the Chargers don't find a way to win it.
Yeah. And what's interesting about this matchup too, for the Houston Texans, division winner, of course, at the same time, they really haven't played a meaningful game until or since their game against the Baltimore Ravens, where they lost 31-2 in that football game. Really struggled to move the football, generate any points, generate any movement, explosive plays. Had trouble getting the football to Nico Collins. Joe Mixon, for a Ravens defense, they did a great job of stopping him and limiting the run. And I feel like that could be something that we maybe see here again this weekend, is just the fact that if Joe Mixon doesn't allow some sort of breathing room for CJ Stroud in that offense, I feel like it's going to be very difficult. And that's something that we discuss all the time, right? Is the fact that sometimes you need to run the football just to give your quarterback a little bit of a breather and let your offensive line hit the opposing team and just be tough. And if this is something that the Chargers take away from them in this football game, the Joe Mixon running game, it could be very difficult, I think, for them to consistently separate and make those big plays offensively. Although it is a home game, it does seem like both of us are favoring the road team and the LA Chargers here in this first round of this game. Would you agree?
Yes. Yes, I do. I agree with you saying that. And I think the other thing is the Houston Texans, as you look at the stat, this is the first time all year I've really ever talked about stats and looked at it.
Yeah.
Because now I got a year's worth of stuff here to look at. But their strongest unit is their defensive secondary.
Yeah.
And the fact that they can run with everybody, play a lot of man-to-man, and they're not afraid to blitz because they trust their secondary. And it is good. And, so that could make it interesting. But if the Chargers run the football well, then, I don't care who you are. You play man-to-man sooner or later against a good quarterback and a good system and some solid wide receivers, you're going to pay for it. So that's kind of what I think. And we'll see where it goes. But I expect that crowd and the energy, playing home playoff games, which I did at Giant Stadium a few times. I mean, when you run out of the tunnel, you go, oh my God. What a difference. I mean, it's truly is. People talk about it all the time. The speed and playoff games are different. It's really true. It is different. And we kind of saw that a playoff game with Detroit and Minnesota.
Yeah,
man, that game tension filled right from the start. The crowd, the players, and it was a wicked physical game, no doubt about that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's where I question either way for Chargers, for the Texans. I really do think both of them are a one and done type of football team. Big picture. I don't really see either one of them getting hot and making a big push into the playoffs. I really think it's kind of like, hey, thanks for making it to the dance. Have a good first round. And then there's still some big pieces to be filled here for both rosters and coaches going forward as far as how they want to manage their teams to be a championship quality football team. The Chargers made vast improvements, of course, just being tougher, establishing the fact that they have a superstar quarterback, and now that they have a system in place that really can secure that. And I think you're right. They've opened up the playbook the past few weeks. They've been way more aggressive with cutting him loose and letting it go. Quinn Johnson, again, has been someone that we were questioning whether or not he would be around even for the future of this franchise with this new coaching staff. And it does seem like he is slowly gaining some momentum and trust within that room, which is so important for him. He's a young football player and he's talented. D'Amico Ryans and them, we like what they're doing. Defense is essentially top 10, top 15 in every statistical category except for red zone percentage touchdowns. But other than that, they do a lot of good things defensively. Strange to see the regression on offense. And that's something that Bobby Slowick really needs to remedy in the offseason, is finding different ways, to create explosive plays for their young football team and to fix that O-line problem as well.
Well, two things real quick. I think the Chargers, no matter who they got to play, if they win the game this week, they can compete against Kansas City and Buffalo. And we've seen it. We saw the Chargers. I know it wasn't a playoff game, but it was still big. And I just feel like they match up really well against Buffalo if they have to go there.
Right.
I think that would be a very, very interesting game. So the Chargers, I don't look at them as a one and done. I think the big thing is just getting through this. Can they find a way to win this game? And then we'll reevaluate and see how it looked. But, it wouldn't shock me if they do have a good run. That's kind of what I think of the team. They know who they are. They're going to play their style. And they're coached really well. Those are good things.
It's a good point. And you're right. If I had to have more faith in the team winning another game, it would be the Chargers over the Texans. I think you make some good points. Absolutely. And we both feel that same way about Buffalo, although, having a great season and their quarterback playing great, there are still some other question marks too. But let's get into the next game.
Let's go.
Spent too much time on that one. That's on me. I'm a bad host. Let's keep it going. The number 6 seed Pittsburgh Steelers traveling on the road to the number 3 seed Baltimore Ravens, 8 p.m. on Prime Video. So that's interesting, a prime game for the playoffs. But Steelers, Ravens, round 3. Thoughts about the Steelers going into the playoffs? All right, going in with a 4-game losing streak. What do you think?
Well, first off, as I was watching the game they just played against Cincinnati, I saw Mike Tomlin late in the game going, oh my God, we're going to go to Baltimore. I honestly, that really crossed my mind. I said, is he thinking about, it looks like they're not going to win the game or whenever. He goes, we got to take this team to Baltimore. Now, Pittsburgh did beat Baltimore once this year. I would just say this quickly about them. Their defense is going to have to be really good. I mean, really good.
Yeah.
To give them a chance. And they've shown they can play their zones and do a pretty good job, but they've also manned up against Baltimore's receiving core and had success. So that would be one. And my other thing, I'm going to just spend all my time right here and I'll let you do Baltimore. And my other thing about Pittsburgh, let's take some chances. All right. Our number one play, if we need something big, let's throw a moon ball. I mean, come on, let's move on. And I said here, I got no life, or no, I got a great life because I get to sit and watch these things.
Yeah.
And I watched a couple games of there this week. And the first thing I said is, my gosh, it's just so basic as far as NFL offenses are concerned. And, it's like, let's be solid. Let's don't make a mistake. Let's do this. And then the defense, they're going to do it and we're going to win our style. I think their style's got to be much more aggressive on the offensive side. I'll be very surprised if we don't see that. And I think a little bit of a sprinkle in of Justin Fields, some clever plays, whatever it is, give him a little shot just to kind of keep it going. So I'm putting all this for this game to be exciting. I'm putting it on the Steelers. You got to make it happen with your defense, and the offense has just got to be more creative, more daring, and the quarterback's got to play well, of course.
Yeah, that's all sounds great, and it's a great idea. The fact that you're going in with that, it's not what they've been doing. It is something that they have struggled to do the past 4 weeks.
Yes.
Creating explosive plays and even being consistent on the ground in their run game with Najee Harris has been so-so, and I think that's a concern for them. But yeah, big concern for me overall. I think I totally double down on what you're saying. Arthur Smith and what they've done offensively. We were optimistic. I feel like early on we saw some glimpses and some growth. Of course, Justin Fields starting off the season on a high note, and then Russell coming in and seemed to elevate the play of the offense a little bit more, right, to that. But then we saw that it just kind of fizzled out. It didn't really continue to push the boundaries as far as what they can do, how they can put pressure on defenses. And you're right, they're playing an old school style of game that I think is more so let's control the pace of the game. Let's win low-scoring football games or rely on their defense. I'm not really sure if their defense is as special as maybe it's made out to be at times. I know that statistically it ranks high in some categories and a lot of categories, but, pass yards per game, they're 23rd in the league. They give up 226 yards per game through the air. And,
wow. Yes.
It comes with a fine line. Of course, you drop back to throw it more. You give more opportunities for that powerful, strong defensive line to get after the passer, but teams don't seem to have an issue cutting up their secondary at times. And I think that's a big concern for them going forward. But I agree with you. Offense, open it up, cut it loose. This style of we're going to win it 17-10 or 13-10, like it's just not going to cut it. They need to be more creative, getting George Pickens involved. I know that he's been absent and not quite as healthy as they need him to be at the end of the year. Right. Mike Williams, still waiting for that to work out. And Pat Freiermuth, all that being said, Pat Freiermuth did drop a pass over the middle that would have potentially set them up for a big time drive there towards the end of the football game. But he's super reliable. That's one of those plays where you don't expect him to miss that one. Your pick, though, for the game, Big Eye, what are you thinking?
Well, listen, I'm definitely, everybody's going to take the Baltimore Ravens.
And
I think,
you know.
Well, you're right. I don't know. And of course, with the spread, I don't even know what it is. I don't care. I'm not going to talk about it. But, Pittsburgh, when they beat the Baltimore Ravens, they need a turnover or two. And if you let Lamar Jackson Lamar Jackson is, what is he? He's an emotional player. And if he gets going and, he gets into this groove where he doesn't care what a defense does and what's going on. He's going to make plays. Right. And, this is a little bit – this Baltimore team is a better team, I think, than we saw last year, even in the playoffs. They're going to be a tough out. But Pittsburgh does kind of have the formula to know what to do to give themselves a really good chance to win this game. I'll say this other thing, too. Hard to run the ball against Baltimore. But the Steelers, the one thing I noticed watching it, their offensive line now is pretty good. But I think in the future, wow, look out. They might have one of these Charger offensive lines, Detroit, Minnesota, whatever, all those teams. I mean, that offensive line, athletic, looks good. And, I hate to talk about the future, but, man, at least they got a unit, I think, that they know down the road it's going to be pretty damn solid. So
yeah, they average 130 yards per game on the ground. They're 10th in the league in that category, and then defensively too for rush yards per game, they are 7th in the league. They give up about 100 on the ground, and I think that's my curiosity too. When the Ravens lost to the Steelers earlier in the year, they didn't really run the football as patiently and maybe that they had in previous games up until that point with Derrick Henry. And it seemed like they kind of left the run game a little too soon. So curious to see if Todd Monken and them rely a little bit more heavily on Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, the 1-2 tandem in the backfield for their running attack to just kind of wear out Pittsburgh in that sense there. But curious to see how they navigate those waters as far as how they manage the football game. All right, so we both got Baltimore in that one. We're both taking the Chargers as well. So we took an away team, a home team. That's Phill.
Right. Good stuff. See it, man.
I'm Matt. You the man. Thank you to Believe. Check him out. Phill Sims, Believe, on Instagram, on Twitter. Matt Sims, Sims Complete on Instagram, on Twitter. We'll be back next week to break out on some more games. Enjoy your football weekend. Sims Complete. See ya. Toodles. We're out of here.
Toodles.
Toodles.